Hello, welcome. My name is MTG Slug, and today I would like to share some ideas that I've had for commanders revolving around archetypes that I feel like should be receiving more love in the commander format. Commander is by far my favorite MTG format. It's the one I've played the longest. I do play a little bit of Pauper, but nowhere near as much as Commander. And over the past few months, I've had some ideas for commanders that I thought could be really cool, and I've started writing them down, maybe designing a few cards. So today I'd like to share with you those cards. Just a little bit of a fair warning. I do not work for Wizards of the Coast. I probably never will, so these will never see the light of day. Dude, these aren't meant to be properly balanced. I try to make them not completely broken, but I am human. I don't have that much experience designing cards, so some of them probably will be broken, but the general idea is there, and that's what I'm trying to get across, is the idea. And 3, I am using MTG Cardsmith for these cards, and the artwork is just my logo, because I didn't really feel like, I was a little lazy. I didn't really feel like drawing out a bunch of different commanders just for the sake of this. So excuse the artwork in them, just read the text, or I'll read it to you, just whatever. And then I'm really kind of hoping that this is gonna start some debates, some idea sharing, and I'm really interested to see what kind of archetypes you guys would like to see more of, and then maybe a possible commander for them, but this is my video, so my ideas. First up, the first one I would like to share is my Abzan Graveyard commander with Galem Sacred Gravekeeper. For 1 white, black, green, we have a legendary creature, Human Shaman, a 3/3 with You Have Hexproof. If you were to draw 1 or more cards, you may put that many cards from the top of your library into your graveyard instead. At the beginning of your upkeep, return a card at random from your graveyard to your hand. And before anyone says anything, I made this before Kethis was even revealed or anything. So I know that there's an Abzan Graveyard, and I think the dragon Tneb or something like that. The dragon... Okay, look, the point is I feel like even with those 2 cards being released, obviously Tneb was already there, Galem would still be different enough with the dragon revolving purely around reviving creatures. And then obviously there's Carador. I haven't forgotten about Carador. Those 2 are about creatures. Kethis is all about legendary matters, and Galem is all about filling your graveyard and kind of protecting your graveyard a little bit with You Have Hexproof. The reason I decided on Abzan is I really didn't want Muldrotha or Marin to get new toys, because I see those decks all the time, and I'm sorry, I'm a little tired of going up against them. But with the white is You Have Hexproof. I thought that was simple enough, and then kind of like the Golgari bit is the milling yourself out, and I wanted to create something with the graveyard, so at the last little bit you return something at random to your hand. With most of the other Abzan commanders or graveyard commanders, you have to worry about filling your graveyard. With Galem, you generally just have to worry about running cards that interact with your graveyard, because you will eventually get cards into your graveyard. That's not because you can just continuously mill yourself out. It's not super fast. You can run cards to accelerate it, but I feel like Galem kind of puts a little bit of a twist on that, where you don't have to worry about filling your graveyard as much. And then he's just a good value engine graveyard, so I thought it was a little interesting, maybe a little bit more obsolete now that Kethis exists, but oh well. The next commander I had in mind is a cycling commander with Hiomotha Enlightened Energy. For white, blue, black, red, we get a legendary creature, Elemental Spirit, a 3/5 with cards you own with cycling cost 1 less to cycle. This may not reduce the cost of cycling to less than 1. Whenever you cycle a card, choose 1. draw a card. Kilmatha deals 3 damage to any target. Return a card with cycling from your graveyard to your hand, or gain 5 life. The reason green isn't here is because I feel like we need more 4-color commanders, and I feel like cycling is a really good place for a 4-color. It'd be really easy just to do 5-color, but 4-color I feel like puts a little bit of a spin on it. And this is definitely more of a value engine. The win condition isn't necessarily spelled out in the commander itself, just because cycling is very open-ended. There's a ton of different cards with cycling, and with the potential value you could get, I really wanted to have options. And then obviously we have the blue with draw a card, the red with deal 3 damage, the black with returning something to your hand, and then the white with the gain 5 life. I really felt like it incorporated the colors. It really cared about cycling cards, and then it would just kind of be up to the person building the deck to really point this in a direction to get the deck off the ground. So I thought it left a lot of room for experimentation, and just looked like a decent fun. Decent fun for me. Not much else to say. This next one does require a little bit of explanation. This is my self-pinging / devil tribal commander. So we have Phyrex, Blood of Chaos. For black, red. You get a legendary creature devil, a 5/2, with whenever Phyrex takes damage, prevent that damage. Phyrex deals damage to you equal to the amount of damage prevented this way. Whenever you take damage, you may draw that many cards. Then discard that many cards unless you pay 2 life for each card not discarded this way. And then sacrifice 3 devils, return Phyrex from your graveyard to your hand. I will say right off the bat that Devil Tribal does not exist. There is just flat out not enough devils to really make it happen, and so I've also been kind of designing how I would take Devil Tribal. It's probably going to be a video in the future, but for now I can say that Devil Tribal is basically revolving about a bunch of creatures that deal damage to literally everything. And so Devil Tribal is really about just whittling your opponents down as well as yourself, and then you gaining resources from your life being whittled down to help accelerate, and hopefully you're going to kill your opponents before your loss of life really catches up to you. Going back to Phyrex, with that idea in mind, I feel like though this is probably my most broken commander just because of the sheer amount of card advantage that you get and the fact that your opponents are being punished for dealing damage to you. This one I probably need to work on a bit more, but like I said, the idea is there. With the whole card draw thing, I felt like I had to make it you may draw cards. My first rendition was just whenever you take damage, draw that many cards, just flat out. But then I realized that went infinite with stuff like Nekasar and the creatures that ping you damage whenever you draw cards. And I feel like that would have been an automatic loss, and so I felt like I had to make it you may draw that many cards. But the idea is they're kind of self-pinging, and then eventual Devil Tribal once I make that video. Hopefully I'll make that video. But self-pinging, kind of burn, you're kind of rewarded for dealing damage to yourself. Maybe that should be a tagline. Whenever you take damage, if none of your opponents or anything they controlled were dealing that damage. Anyway, the point is self-pinging / Devil Tribal when that eventually comes out. Yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting, kind of fun. Something that really gives Rakdos an advantage over something else, because at this point, we've got Rakdos himself that can cheat creatures in, and then just a bunch of just kind of aggro aristocratic strategies, so something a little interesting, I guess. Next is my non-combat Boros with Solaro Wars Chamberlain, I think. For 1 red-white, you get a legendary creature, Soldier Advisor, a 1/4 with whenever another creature leaves the battlefield, if it wasn't during a combat step, that creature's controller loses life equal to that creature's converted mana cost. And then whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, you may draw a card unless that creature's controller pays 2. So my idea around this was kind of Boros stacks and punish your opponents for blinking. I feel like blinking is a really strong strategy that is kind of hard to interact with sometimes, and Solaro would be a really good way to punish those blink decks. You could run stacks, you could run just a bunch of removal and just keep removing your opponent's creatures, since that's going to deal damage to them. And then whenever they want to swing into you, it's a little bit of card advantage. And since Boros really struggles with card advantage, but they run quite a few tax effects, especially with Smothering Type. So you pay 2, they pay 2, or you draw cards with a little bit of card advantage, some stacks, and then I feel like a commander that can go a few different ways. You could just go burn, removal, stacks, something that's not combat oriented, which is something I feel like Boros really needs. So I thought it was an interesting idea. It'd be kind of fun to build around. Maybe fun for you, not for your opponents, but some people some people are into that. Next up is probably the weirdest commander I have. That is Vultus, Wild Spell Shaper. Is my Jund Spellslinger with 1 black, red, green for a legendary creature, human druid, 3/4. Whenever an instant or sorcery spell you control deals lethal damage to a creature, it deals the excess damage to that creature's controller. And then Vultus can't be damaged by instants and sorceries you control. So my idea around this is all the stuff like Star of Extinction, Blasphemous Act, those kind of effects where it turns those just from board wipes into finishers. Vultus, though, I feel like he's really weird because he would be super strong against token decks, especially with those clearing the battlefield abilities, but or spells rather. But you would have to be very careful yourself, because obviously if you have any creatures down, you would be dealt damage as well. I thought it was just super interesting, super explosive, kind of strong, and then most of the commanders around Jund just care about creatures, whether it's resurrecting creatures or playing bigger creatures or just stuff like that. So I thought having a Jund commander that really revolved around something that wasn't creatures, but still gives the Jund feel with basically your instants and sorceries have trample, although they can't get trample, but so this is the next best thing. So I felt like it was kind of interesting, giving Jund another avenue, something that wasn't just creatures, because that's basically what they all revolve around, and Vultus is definitely a weird weird way to go around that, but I feel like it'd be pretty fun. It'd be okay. Maybe a little too weird, maybe a few too many balancing issues, but the idea is there. Just like with all these, the idea is there, and it's all the commanders that I have right now. I feel like these commanders would be pretty fun. Phyrix is probably my most broken one, with all the insane card advantage that you can do. I mean, you tap Ancient Tomb for 2 colorless, and you loot 2, basically. So I feel like that would be a little bit broken, maybe requires a little bit more fixing. But the point is the idea is there, and I'm really curious to see what you guys think about this, and maybe some other ideas that you guys have as well, because there are definitely a lot of archetypes that don't have commanders that I really feel like should have commanders. Let me know down in the comments. We can have a small little discussion. Sounds like fun. But and then eventually I'll get my Devil Tribal video out. We'll see. But until that happens, I hope you guys had some fun watching the video. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch my video, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.